Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here and happen to really like these videos, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell notification for updates on, well, nearly daily videos. And today we're talking about Uber and their plan to buy Grubhub, or their rumored plan. If you've been watching this channel, you will know that Uber, after laying off almost 7,000 people in 2 weeks, and shuttering 40 locations and costing a lot of people jobs and not paying the unemployment for their drivers and, basically fighting against drivers every step of the way. And heck, there was even a situation where managers said that they would take a salary cut if it would save jobs. Uber said no. That kind of company Uber is. Well, it was rumored that they wanted to make a bid for Grubhub, and Wall Street reacted very positively to this, more on the Grubhub investors than on the Uber investors. Grubhub stock jumped like 50%, not 50%, but it was quite a bit. It went from like $48 to $60. It was crazy. But anyway, I don't know if this is actually going to happen. I think, of course, it would be bad. It would be bad for consumers, and it would be bad for drivers. It would mean less choice, and of course, it would give Uber a bit of a monopoly on food delivery. A monopoly on a business that technically, from what Uber is saying, doesn't make money. So why do they want to control more of it? Well, it's that whole thing, if we control this much of the market, eventually we can make a profit. However, some congressmen and women are not buying it. In fact, specifically, 4 Democratic senators have warned Uber against buying Grubhub. Here's what it says. 4 Democratic lawmakers led by Senator Amy Klobuchar wrote to antitrust enforcers on Wednesday to warn that plans by Uber Technologies Inc., owner of Uber Eats, to buy rival online food delivery company Grubhub Inc. would, quote, raise serious competition issues in many cities. In their letter, the lawmakers said the deal would give Uber and Grubhub 48% of the U.S. market, while DoorDash would have 42%. A merged Uber Eats and Grubhub would have 79% of the market in New York, 68% in Boston, 65% in Miami, and 60% in Chicago, and 51% in Atlanta. For the record, 35 to 40% of a market share is what most senators and congressmen and antitrust lawmakers agreed to be a monopoly. So, at least in a few cities, it would be well over that. Quote, we've been hearing about the exorbitant fees that these online delivery app companies charge to restaurants, which are then forced to pass these excessive costs on to consumers, the lawmakers wrote. It is particularly troubling that this merger is being contemplated during a pandemic when consumer demand has increased and when restaurants are more desperate for revenue than ever. So the letter from Klobuchar, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee's antitrust panel, as well as Senators Patrick Leahy, Richard Blumenthal, and Cory Booker, was addressed to Mackin Delaram, I think I pronounced that right, head of the Justice Department Antitrust Division, and Joseph Simons, head of the Federal Trade Commission. The 2 agencies ensure that mergers comply with antitrust laws. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't like all of these senators, but I like at least a couple of them. I won't say which ones. We're going to try to not get into that topic. But I actually like a couple of these senators. And I frankly agree with them. I mean, I think this would give Uber and Grubhub too much power. But what's weird about this is, it's interesting that this is what caught senators' attention. The monopoly of Gmail and the Google search engine isn't being challenged. The monopolies of Facebook and Twitter and PayPal aren't being challenged. The big kahuna of them all, Amazon, is not being challenged. There's actually tons of monopolies out there. And of course, Apple. I think Apple's one of the biggest monopolies when you get down to it. These issues are not being raised against these companies very often. They are occasionally, but nothing ever seems to happen. And yet, whether because it's politically advantageous to them or whatever, senators really rail against Uber. And granted, I agree that they should. Uber takes advantage of everyone, and Grubhub seems to be no better. I mean, we've seen now the receipts of how much money Grubhub takes from the restaurants. That is not sustainable for the restaurants. And yet, we are now in a pandemic where they are price gouging them. And in some states, like New York, they have actually had to state to these delivery companies, your fee is capped at 15%. You can't take more than that, because they were just doing what they could to get away from it. But here's the other danger. Let's say Uber and Grubhub merge, and then in some states they have more than 50% of the market. In fact, they have, what were some of the numbers? Like they have a 79 or 68%. Well, guess what? In those markets then, they go to the restaurants and they say, hey, you will use us because we have this much. You will pay what we demand. Otherwise, we will not let you be on there. And yeah, you could be on Postmates and DoorDash, but you will have 20% of the market, well, 21%, or you will have 32% of the market. And this is why monopolies are bad. This is also why the government considers 35 to 40% a monopoly, because when you have such a big chunk of the market, even if you are not the dominant player, guess what? You can make, that gives you a lot of leverage. If you got 40% of the market, that gives you leverage in and of itself. But look, DoorDash and Grubhub might be getting up to 79% of the market in some states. That will give them unprecedented power. And heck, from a driver's perspective, this is even worse. You have one less person you can go to if you don't like Uber Eats or if you don't like Grubhub. And now Uber could definitely tell you to take smaller fees or smaller wages. Hey, you're going to take a wage cut. What? Nothing. We've got 80% of the market. Who are you going to go to? DoorDash? Well, guess what? We got 80% of the market, and we're going to run DoorDash out of here. You don't want to go against us because we got 80% of the market. Mother effers. That's what they're going to do. This is not good for anyone. It's not good for anyone. Now, why did the stock raise the way it did? Well, I'll tell you. It rose the way it did because investors like the idea of monopolies. They do. If you can become a monopoly, your company will make money, it will become more valuable, and it becomes very, very hard to stop. So I'm actually glad that at least 4 senators are keeping their eye on this situation. Hopefully they can stop anything from happening before a merger or a buyout actually takes place. Obviously, Uber and Grubhub would like to become the dominant player. I know this is a winner-take-all scenario, but for the customers, for the drivers, for the restaurants, for everyone involved in this, it would be best if they stayed separate companies. It would absolutely benefit everyone. But that's where we're going to leave this one. Type 112 below if you got to the end and leave your comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or like, hey, yeah, would you like to see this merger happen? If so, why? And if not, why not? I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.